I woke to fluorescent light and the sound of Frank's voice. That was the first thing. Not Helen's voice, not a doctor's, Frank's. He was standing at the foot of my bed talking to someone I couldn't immediately see, speaking quietly, carefully, the way he spoke when he had already decided something and was simply managing the details. I had been in St. Mercy Hospital for 3 days. The stroke had taken my speech and the right side of my body. That was what Dr. Simmons had explained to Helen in the corridor outside my room. I had heard that conversation too, through the half-open door, flat on my back and completely unable to respond. What the stroke had not taken was my hearing, or my understanding, or my memory. I lay there and listened to my brother's voice, and I understood exactly what was happening, and I could not make a single sound to stop it. What I could do, what I had told Helen I would always be able to do, I will explain in a moment. First, let me tell you about Frank. Robert and Frank Patterson. Patterson Brothers Construction. Privately held. Founded 1990. 60-40 split. My 60, Frank's 40. We had built it from 2 trucks and a used equipment trailer into a company with 31 employees and contracts across 3 counties. 36 years. Frank was not wrong when he said he had given everything to it. He had. He ran operations, managed schedules, knew every crew foreman by name. I was the face, the contracts, the clients, the financing. We were different men with different skills, and for a long time that had been enough. When it stopped being enough is a longer story than this one. What matters is that by 2026, Frank wanted control. He had wanted it for years. He had mentioned it in meetings, in passing, in the careful, indirect language of a man testing a boundary he has not yet decided to cross. I had noticed. I had said nothing, but I had made preparations. In the spring of 2020, I sat down with James Whitfield. James had been my attorney for 22 years. I told him what I wanted. A durable power of attorney, not standard. Specifically drafted to include explicit authority for asset restructuring, trust transfers, and voting rights reassignment. The kind of document most people never think to prepare until it is too late. James raised an eyebrow. "You expecting something, Robert?" "I'm expecting everything," I said. "That's how you stay prepared." Helen received the power of attorney that same week. Full authority. James walked her through every clause. That evening, I told her one more thing. It had started with a client dispute the previous year. A contractor had tried to pressure me into signing a bad agreement at a site meeting, surrounded by his people, no lawyer present. I had walked away. On the drive home, I had thought about what would happen if I couldn't walk away someday, if I couldn't speak, if the only thing left was the smallest possible movement. "Helen," I said, "if I'm ever in a situation where I can't speak, if someone puts papers in front of me and I need to say no, I'll lift one finger on my left hand, just one. That means no. Don't let them have anything." She had looked at me for a long moment. "One finger," she said. "One finger." She had never forgotten. Dr. Simmons had permitted a brief family visit on the 3rd day. 45 minutes. He had been clear with Frank and Helen both. This was family time, not a business meeting, not a legal proceeding. Frank had nodded. Then he had brought papers anyway. I lay there and listened to him explain it to the room, to Helen, to his wife, Patrice, to the general air of the hospital that apparently served as his audience. The business needs leadership right now. Robert can't provide that. We don't know the timeline. We don't know the outcome. He moved closer to the bed. I need his 60% transferred to me temporarily, just operationally, just until things become clearer. He produced the document, set it on the tray beside my bed, put a pen on top of it. I brought someone to guide his hand if he needs help, he said. I looked at the pen on the tray. He had brought a pen to my hospital room. He had brought someone to guide my hand. I turned my head, the small movement I had, toward Helen. She was standing at the left side of my bed. She had been watching Frank with an expression I knew well. The expression of someone collecting information before deciding what to do with it. Her eyes moved to my face. I held her gaze, and I lifted one finger on my left hand. Just one. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Helen was never dramatic. But something in her eyes went from watchful to certain in the space of a single breath. 35 years of marriage contained in that moment. Every conversation, every preparation, every quiet Tuesday evening when we had planned for things we hoped would never happen. She looked at Frank. "Put the papers away," she said. "Helen, this isn't—" "Put them away, Frank." Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. "I have power of attorney, full authority, including asset restructuring and voting rights. James Whitfield drafted it in 2020. It is on file." Frank stared at her. "You're not a business partner. I'm his wife, and I'm his legal representative, and this conversation is over." She picked up her phone. She called James from the hospital corridor while I lay in the room listening to Frank argue with Patrice in low, urgent tones near the window. Dr. Simmons appeared at the door 12 minutes later. He looked at the papers still partially visible on the tray, looked at Frank. "I authorized a family visit," he said quietly. "Not this. I'm going to ask everyone except Mrs. Patterson to leave now." Frank left. He did not look at me on his way out. Over the following 3 days, James executed the transfer. Robert Patterson's 60% shareholding moved into the Patterson Family Trust, Helen as trustee, full voting rights attached. The trust documents specified that no operational or ownership decisions could be made without trustee approval. Frank's 40%, which had seemed like leverage 3 days ago, was now a minority stake in a company he could not control. His lawyer called James on the 4th day. James told me later that the silence on that call had lasted a very long time. 2 weeks after the hospital visit, Frank came to see me. Helen let him in. I was in the living room by then. Wheelchair. Some movement returning on my right side. Still no speech. He sat across from me. He did not talk about the papers. He did not talk about the business. He looked at me for a long time. "I gave 30 years to that company," he said finally. 30 years in the back room while you shook hands at the front. I thought if something happened, it should come to me. I thought that was fair." He looked at his hands. "I know how it looked, walking in there with papers." He was quiet. "I'm sorry, Robert." I looked at my brother, the man I had started a business with 36 years ago on 2 trucks and a handshake. I could not speak, but I held his gaze for a long time. He understood. 6 weeks after the stroke, my speech began returning. Slowly, imperfectly. Individual words first, then short sentences, then something closer to normal, though Dr. Simmons told me it would be months more before full recovery, if full recovery came. The morning the first clear word came back, Helen was sitting beside my bed at home, reading. The ordinary quietness of a Tuesday morning. I looked at her, and I said her name. She looked up from her book, set it down carefully, and took my hand. She did not say anything for a moment. "I know," she said finally. "I know." Over the weeks of my recovery, my phone recorded 71 missed calls, 44 from Frank's attorney, 19 from Frank directly, 8 from Patrice, the only calls that surprised me. I did not know what Patrice wanted to say. Perhaps nothing specific. Perhaps just to say that she had not known what Frank planned to bring to that hospital room until they were already in the car. I did not return the calls. Helen handled everything. She always had. She always would. The business was still ours. Frank's 40% remained. There would be conversations ahead about the future of the partnership, about what 36 years meant and whether it could survive what had happened in that hospital room. Some things cannot be known yet. What I knew was this. 35 years ago, I had married a woman who remembered a single conversation from a Tuesday evening in 2019 and held it in her memory for 7 years and used it at exactly the right moment to protect everything we had built. That is not luck. That is love. Rest easy, Helen. You don't need to rest. You're right here. But I wanted to say it anyway. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice, and share this story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to Lauren's Story, because here, betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks. And every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp. Stay unbroken. Stay tuned.